Welcome back to Rachel Maddow Story, your front row seat to the hottest, most explosive, and yes, sometimes absurd political news in America. Today, we're diving into a story that's equal parts serious, scandalous, and frankly hilarious. It's about Donald Trump, who demanded proof that COVID vaccines actually work, and then just weeks later, rolled up his sleeve and got the booster shot himself. Yes, you heard that right. The man questioning the science ended up following the science, or at least following the shot. And if you think that's where the irony ends, think again. Social media is having a field day with comments ranging from "he'll have autism by Sunday" to meme about Trump being vaccinated against hypocrisy. So buckle up. We're unpacking this story. CDC drama, RRE Jr. role, and the very American spectacle that happens when politics, medicine, and social media collide. By the end, you'll laugh, you might groan, and you'll definitely want to stick around for the whole story. Asterisk. If there's one thing that has become almost a signature of Donald Trump's presidency, and post-presidency, it's the uncanny ability to say one thing and do another. Case in point, the curious saga of his COVID-19 booster shot. Weeks ago, Trump made headlines demanding that pharmaceutical companies like Pfizer and Moderna prove that their vaccines actually worked. Many people think they are a miracle that saved millions of lives. Others disagree, he proclaimed. He wanted answers from the CDC, and he wanted them immediately. The urgency was palpable, at least in the world, according to Trump. And the message was clear: don't give me your generic reassurances, and show me the data. Yet in a twist that could only happen in the uniquely Trumpian universe of American politics, the same man who questioned vaccine efficacy ended up getting the booster himself. That's right. After weeks of public skepticism, political posturing, and fiery rhetoric aimed at pharmaceutical companies, Trump rolled up his sleeve and went along with the very science he had questioned. This, of course, raises the inevitable question: was this a moment of personal responsibility, a concession to science, or just another strategic political move? Trump has long walked the fine line between genuine concern and political spectacle. In this case, it seems he may have delivered a bit of both, but the optics are undeniable. Words and actions once again didn't quite line up. The story doesn't end with the shot itself. Social media erupted with reactions that range from disbelief to pure mockery. Commenters joked about him catching autism by Sunday, while others sarcastically suggested that he had been vaccinated against hypocrisy since his early days. Memes circulated faster than any CDC press release, highlighting the irony of a former president publicly questioning vaccine safety while quietly taking the very measure he publicly debated. And let's not overlook the timing. Trump received his booster on the very day his administration reportedly laid off dozens of staff at the CDC, with staff who had been responsible for enforcing life-saving vaccine recommendations. To some observers, this sequence of events symbolized the broader tension between political theater and public health policy. While the public was scrambling to understand shifting CDC guidelines, the former president was quietly immunizing himself, creating a story that's equal parts serious and absurd. This chapter of Trump's vaccine saga highlights a recurring theme in his political narrative: the dissonance between rhetoric and action, whether it's demanding proof one day and following the proof the next, or criticizing public health officials while benefiting from their work. Trump's behavior has provided both frustration and fodder for public amusement. In short, the COVID booster story is more than just a medical anecdote. It's a snapshot of a political figure navigating public opinion, personal health, and performative skepticism, and all at the same time. And for the rest of us, it's a reminder that sometimes the most fascinating stories happen when words and actions collide in spectacularly ironic fashion. If the COVID booster story teaches us anything, it's that Donald Trump's actions are never just news, but they are performance art for social media. Within hours of reports that Trump had received his booster shot, Twitter, now known as X, exploded with commentary, memes, and a healthy dose of satire. The platform became a modern amphitheater, with users playing the role of both critic and comedian. One of the earliest viral comments simply read, "He'll have autism by Sunday." It was short, sharp, and quintessentially internet, provocative, absurd, and impossible to ignore. Others weighed in with a mix of sarcasm and mock-serious advice, such as, talk to your doctor and see if ignoring RFA Jr. is right for you. The underlying humor wasn't just about Trump's decision to get vaccinated. It was about the clash between his previous statements and his current actions, and how that clash became fodder for endless ridicule. Memes, of course, did not take long to follow. Some depicted Trump receiving a hypocrisy vaccine, poking fun at the long-standing gap between his public skepticism of vaccines and his private decision to take one. Others combined images of the CDC vaccine vials and Trump himself, highlighting the irony of a former president questioning life-saving medical guidance while simultaneously benefiting from it. Social media, in other words, amplify both the absurdity and the seriousness of the moment. This reaction is more than just entertainment. It reveals how Americans process political contradictions in the digital age when a public figure acts inconsistently, especially in matters of health and public safety. Social media becomes a tool for collective commentary, humor, and even outrage. Users employ jokes and satire as a coping mechanism, transforming political events into viral content that spreads faster than any press release. At the same time, some commentators raised genuine concerns about the broader implications of Trump's actions. While the jokes were flying, the public was also reminded that vaccine skepticism, whether encouraged or not, has real-world consequences. Memes may entertain, but they also reflect underlying frustrations, confusion over public health guidance, mistrust in leadership, and the ways political theater can intersect with life or death decisions. In short, X became more than a social media platform. It became a lens for understanding contemporary American politics. Through humor, sarcasm, and irony, users highlighted the contradictions inherent in Trump's statements versus his actions. They reminded the public that political figures are human, sometimes hypocritical, and always subject to public scrutiny. By the end of the day, the story wasn't just about a COVID booster. It was about irony, performative politics, and the power of social media to hold leaders accountable, or at least to make us laugh while doing so. Trump's vaccine saga may have started in a White House briefing room, but on X it became a cultural phenomenon, complete with punchlines, hots, and the kind of biting satire only the internet can deliver. At the center of this story is the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, the Advisory Committee on Immunization Practices, and none other than Robert F. Kennedy Jr., whose influence on vaccine policy continues to stir controversy. In September, RFA Jr. Bong's handpicked advisory committee recommended new guidelines for COVID-19 shots. Acting CDC Director Jim O'Neill publicly embraced these recommendations, emphasizing informed consent as the cornerstone of the updated policy. According to O'Neill, this change would replace the CDC's blanket 2022 guidance for perpetual COVID boosters. He argued that doctors should now have more flexibility to discuss risks and benefits with individual patients or parents, restoring what he called shared clinical decision-making. For some, this sounded like common sense. For others, especially independent vaccine experts, the move was a head-scratcher. Dorrit Rice, a vaccine policy expert at the University of California, San Francisco, pointed out that doctors have always been required to obtain informed consent. In her view, framing this as a radical shift ignores decades of standard medical practice and may even reduce vaccine uptake by implying uncertainty where none necessarily exists. Here's where the irony kicks in. While public health experts debated the merits of informed consent and shared decision-making, Trump quietly got his booster. He personally navigated the very system whose guidelines were in flux, effectively demonstrating that whether policy changes are justified or not, life goes on. And some people simply follow the advice when it benefits them. Social media didn't miss this either. Memes joked about Trump being vaccinated against hypocrisy, while others questioned whether the rest of the public would have the same access to guidance without political influence. This debate over informed consent isn't just a bureaucratic squabble. It reflects a broader tension in public health, how to balance individual choice with population-level protection. Should vaccines be presented as mandatory recommendations, or should every patient navigate a nuanced conversation with their doctor? The Trump story exposes how this tension can become entangled with politics, public perception, and yes, comedy ultimately. The CDC and RFAS Jr. episode shows how scientific guidance and political influence collide. While the agency seeks to provide evidence-based recommendations, political appointments and advisory committees can dramatically shift messaging, creating confusion for doctors, patients, and even the former president. In the end, the public is left trying to parse what is medically sound from what is politically motivated, and all while social media turns the drama into entertainment. Trump's booster, combined with the CDC's policy shakeup, serves as a case study in modern American public health, a complex, sometimes contradictory system where politics, science, and individual decisions intersect, often in ways that are more ironic than instructive. And as always, the internet is there to document every twist, turn, and face-palm-worthy moment along the way. If there's one thing this story teaches us, it's that politics and public health are a combustible mix. Especially in the Trump era over the past few chapters, we've seen a former president publicly question vaccine efficacy, quietly get his booster, and inspire social media satire at lightning speed. We've seen CDC policies shift under the influence of Robert F. Kennedy Jr. von X Advisory Committee, and we've watched experts debate the implications of informed consent. Now it's time to step back and connect the dots. Trump's actions highlight a central tension in modern American life: the gap between rhetoric and behavior. Demanding proof of vaccine efficacy while privately following the science is a pattern that repeats itself across many of his political narratives. In this case, it provided both comic relief and a cautionary tale, showing the public how personal behavior, policy decisions, and political posturing can collide in unexpected ways. Social media's role cannot be underestimated. Platforms like X have become arenas where political contradictions are not only exposed but amplified. Memes, sarcastic comments, and viral jokes serve a dual purpose. They entertain and they inform. They force the public to confront hypocrisy, misinformation, and inconsistencies in leadership. In the digital age, satire is often the most effective form of accountability. At the same time, the CDC and RFA Jr. episode reminds us that policy changes are not just abstract debates. They have real-world consequences. The tension between informed consent and public health recommendations affects how people make decisions about vaccination. Confusion, mixed messages, and politicization can reduce trust in science, and in a pandemic, reduced trust can cost lives. So what can viewers take away from this saga? First, always scrutinize the gap between what leaders say and what they do. Second, recognize the power of public discourse and including humor, so hold figures accountable. And third, understand that public health is rarely purely medical. It's intertwined with politics, media, and human behavior in ways that are both complex and often ironic. Ultimately, the Trump booster story is more than a news item. It's a cultural snapshot of America in 2025. It's a reminder that in a world dominated by social media, political theater, and shifting guidelines, the public must stay informed, critical, and yes, occasionally amused. By following these stories closely, questioning the inconsistencies, and thinking critically about the policy implications, we can navigate the chaos more wisely, and perhaps even enjoy a good laugh along the way. So as we close this chapter of the saga, remember, politics and health are never separate. Truth is sometimes stranger than satire, and in the modern media landscape, irony is just another ingredient in the American story.